Before Microsoft ever announced the Xbox One, a 20-year-old in Maryland had already built one. In his bedroom, from stolen parts. And when it went up for sale online, the FBI intercepted the package. This is the story of a group of gamers who broke into Microsoft, Epic, Valve, and then, almost by accident, into a United States Army network. They called themselves the Xbox Underground. In the next few minutes, how a handful of teenagers got inside Microsoft's developer network and stayed there for 3 years. How a hacked game studio handed them Apache helicopter training software built for the U.S. military. The break-in at Microsoft's own campus in Redmond. And how it all ended at a border crossing in New York. They weren't a criminal syndicate. They were gamers. David Pokora, a computer science student from Mississauga, Ontario. Nathan LaRue, 20, from Bowie, Maryland. Austin Alcala, 18, from Indiana. Sanadode Neshiwat, 28, from New Jersey. And an Australian teenager near Perth who went by Super Day E. Most of them had never met in person. They met in the same place everyone else did back then. Online. Playing Xbox. What connected them wasn't money at first. It was a question. What does the next console look like? Before anyone's allowed to know. Between January 2011 and April 2014, they went looking for the answer. And they kept finding doors that opened. The way in wasn't glamorous. SQL injection, stolen login credentials, keyloggers, remote access tools. Nothing exotic. Just patient, relentless, and applied to companies that assumed nobody would bother. Their crown jewel was Microsoft's Game Developer Network program, the system real studios use to build games for Xbox. Source code, technical specifications, hardware documentation for a console that didn't publicly exist yet, codenamed Durango. And in recorded conversations, the group made something clear. They weren't trying to burn the access down. They talked about staying quiet, making it look like one developer got compromised, so nobody would tighten security. Because they didn't just want Durango. They wanted to still be inside for the generation after that. That's the part that separates this from a smash and grab. They were thinking in years. The list of targets kept growing. Epic Games, Valve, Activision, Electronic Arts, Sony, Autodesk. And the loot was exactly what you'd expect from people who loved games and wanted them first. Pre-release builds of Gears of War DRE, Call of Duty Modern Warfare DRE, the FIFA series. In a wiretapped call, Pokora rattled off what he had access to. Chip makers, film studios, basically any game company you could name. He wasn't whispering. He was bragging. Prosecutors would later put a number on all of it. Between $100 and $200 million in intellectual property and recovery costs. Then they hit a studio called Zombie Studios, a Seattle developer. Small, not a household name. But Zombie had a second business. Contract work for the United States Army. Specifically, flight simulation software used to train Apache helicopter pilots. Through that breach, the group reached an Army network. And according to prosecutors, they had access for roughly 2 months in late 2012. Understand what just happened here. A group of gaming enthusiasts chasing an unreleased console walked sideways into military training software. Not because they targeted the Army, because a game studio happened to have a defense contract. This is the moment the story stops being about Xbox and starts being about federal prison. Meanwhile, in Australia, the group's most visible member was doing the opposite of hiding. In February 2013, an Xbox Durango development kit appeared on eBay, listed by Super Day. No photo, just a claim that this was Microsoft's unreleased console. 43 bids later, it closed at $50,100. He later said the whole thing was a stunt, that nobody actually pays that, and it was really just about getting people to talk. People talked. Microsoft's IP crimes team took it seriously enough to send a senior executive to Australia. And on February 19, 2013, Western Australian police raided the family home. Laptop, phone, banking records, roughly $10,000 worth of hardware. Gone. He wasn't arrested that day, but the clock had started. Now here's the part that sounds made up. It isn't. It's in the indictment. In September 2013, 2 months before the Xbox One's public launch, the group arranged a physical theft. Not a network intrusion, not a remote exploit. A secure building on Microsoft's Redmond campus. Alcala and Pokora brokered it. 2 other people carried it out, using stolen building access credentials. They walked in, they walked out. With 3 non-public Xbox One development units. Think about the escalation. These are people who started by asking what a console looks like, and ended up walking through Microsoft's front door and taking it. With stolen hardware, stolen source code, and stolen documentation, LaRue built something that had never existed outside Microsoft. A working counterfeit Xbox One, assembled from the group's own pipeline of stolen parts and stolen data, months before the real thing reached a single store shelf. And then they tried to sell it. One counterfeit unit reportedly moved for around $5,000. But in July 2013, the FBI intercepted one of LaRue's consoles in transit. That's the turning point. Because now, investigators weren't chasing log files and IP addresses. They were holding the physical proof in their hands. After that, it came apart fast. On April 23, 2014, a federal grand jury in Delaware returned an 18-count indictment. Conspiracy, computer fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, identity theft, theft of trade secrets, criminal copyright infringement. Pokora had already been arrested in March at the border crossing in Lewiston, New York. He drove into the United States. He didn't drive back out. LaRue tried to run the other direction. June 16, 2014, attempting to cross into Canada from Buffalo. He was caught at the border and stayed in custody from that day forward. And Super Dai? He left Australia entirely, became a fugitive. His mother was later jailed for more than 2 years for helping him go. That's the cost nobody calculates at 18. Not the sentence, the people who go down with you. All 4 American and Canadian defendants pleaded guilty. Pokora went first in September 2014. And that plea made history in a way nobody wanted. He's believed to be the first foreign-based individual ever convicted in the United States for hacking American businesses to steal trade secrets. 18 months in federal prison. Released in July 2015. Neshwad, 18 months. LaRue, 24. Investigators recovered roughly $620,000 in cash and proceeds, against a $100 million estimate of damage. That gap tells you everything. They were never really in it for the money. They were in it to know things first, and it cost them years of their lives. The legacy of this case isn't a patch note. It's the reason a game studio with a defense contract is now treated as a defense contractor. It's the reason console makers assume their development networks will be targeted, instead of hoping they won't. And it's a precedent that says a border is not a firewall. Hack an American company from another country, and you can still end up in an American prison. All of it started with a question a bunch of gamers couldn't let go of. What does the next Xbox look like? They found out, before anyone else on Earth. And it was the most expensive answer of their lives. What gets you? The Army network? Or the fact that they physically walked into Redmond and took the console? Drop it in the comments. And if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. Because the gaming industry has been quietly losing this kind of fight for a lot longer than most players realize.